I don't know if any of you guys knew, watching Peele like 10 years ago, that Peele is a fucking horror genius. But I'm so glad he decided to share that side of him with the world. I love Get Out. It's one of my favorite horror movies from the past decade, and I just want to talk a little bit about it and how it compares to us, without really comparing them. Let's start with Get Out. It almost starts off like any other horror movie for the first few minutes, and you might even be fooled into thinking you're watching something unoriginal. However, it doesn't take long before the movie starts throwing hints at you that something is seriously off, and it's not in the way that you expected. The story is just beautifully told, and the concept is delicately balancing the line of what the fuck and pure brilliance. There are a few jump scares, and the ones that are there work well and don't really give you any relief. It all just adds to the eerie atmosphere, and you feel more and more unsafe. The movie is nicely paced and has a masterful build-up to its final scenes. Considering that Peele wrote this movie and that he is a comedian at heart, it's not surprising that there were some pretty funny twists along the way, offering some comedic relief. I really like the whole story with the TSA buddy who tries to save him. He is TS motherfucking A and a necessity for this film. I'm also slightly in love with Daniel Kaluuya's acting, and I think he deserves a little something, like an Oscar or something. As I'm sure you all know, Get Out did win an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay back in 2017, and it received widespread critical acclaim and grossed over $255 million worldwide, and quickly became the highest grossing film domestically directed by a black filmmaker, but was unfortunately passed by F. Gary Gray later that same year with the movie The Fate of the Furious. Get Out actually beat the Blair Witch Project on a record it has held since its release, with being the highest grossing debut film based on an original screenplay in Hollywood history. Los Angeles Times also declared the film's success a cultural phenomenon, and of course the internet has chipped in and created thousands of memes of the sunken place and the memorable running scene with Grandpa. So I'm obviously not alone in loving this movie. It's also been highly praised by critics for the screenplay, direction, acting, and satirical themes. It was actually nominated for 4 Oscars, and that includes Best Picture, which it lost to The Shape of Water by Del Toro, but yeah. Now, how about us? Going into the film, my expectations were pretty restrained. I was really scared of hyping it up too much for myself and getting disappointed. I knew that almost guaranteedly it would not be as good as Get Out. For one man to have 2 of those masterpieces in him would just be way too unfair. I was also crossing both fingers and toes, praying the drop wouldn't be too big, and that his style of storytelling would still shine through, and that he would still be a cut above everything else horror that Hollywood spews out. And I gotta say, I wasn't disappointed. I was pleasantly surprised, actually. By the way, I just have to mention that I hate trailers. Like, I really hate them. I do not think that they are a good representation of what a movie actually is, and I tend to not watch them, so I knew basically nothing about this movie going in, except that YouTube kept spamming the trailer as an ad for me before everything that I watched for a while, so I couldn't miss hearing the sentence, "There's a family in our driveway," so I knew that, but I knew nothing else, and I honestly think that there's nothing better than going into a movie completely blind if you already know it's gonna be interesting. Us starts off introducing us to a family of 3 vacating in Santa Cruz. Their daughter, Adelaide, wanders off into the Hall of Mirrors, sees another version of herself, and is gone for a little while. When they find her, she is unable to speak. Then we are reintroduced to the same girl as an adult, planning to take a vacation to the same place with her then husband and kids. Doesn't sound like a great idea, but sure. They meet up with their friends at the beach, and Adelaide's son goes missing for a bit. Later that evening, everything kicks off. The family is completely caught off guard when out of nowhere, another family of 4 suddenly is standing in their driveway without really moving much, which can be kind of alarming. The husband is thankfully not alarmed at first and does the right thing and asks them to leave. Let's just say it doesn't go as planned. They quickly realize that the intruders are their own doppelgangers and that they are somewhat vengeful. They then go on to explain that they are called the Tethered and that they are parts of their souls, like their shadows. The whole attack is orchestrated by Adelaide's shadow, Red, and she's the only shadow that can talk. The rest of the movie is just a crazy series of events with the plot tossing you back and forth before it decides to explain everything. It reminds me of a strange combination of a zombie comedy like Train to Busan and a home invasion horror flick like Funny Games. But Us is still its own thing. It somehow managed to carve out a completely fresh path in between those already existing. You can say it has similarities to a lot of existing pieces, but I don't think you can place it in the same category as any of them.
Everything in this movie was deliberate. That is one thing I can guarantee you.
Every single scene in Us had a purpose. Even at the beginning, everything you see, every shot is to set up the plot. And it also pretty much spoiled the entire plot in the first few minutes with its symbolism, which is impossible to understand if you don't know the twist at the end, but it's still pretty cool. It makes for an interesting rewatch, which is definitely something it has in common with Get Out. So the biggest theme in Us is probably the duality of American society. That the Tethered represents how some people live on the top of the class system while others are stuck in poverty. There are no demons in this movie, just humans. In an interview, Jordan Peele said that as he was writing Us, he stumbled across a commercial for Hands Across America and that it gave him a really eerie feeling. There's something cult-like about the imagery that makes me think of the Manson family singing folk songs as they leave the courtroom. So yeah, Hands Across America was an effort to raise money for organizations fighting hunger and homelessness. So on May 25th, 1986, around 5.5 million people held hands with strangers and tried to make a chain that stretched from California to New York. It's actually pretty insane that they almost pulled that off without the internet. Another symbolism used throughout the film is Michael Jackson. Adelaide gets a Thriller t-shirt by her dad, and this is of course for a reason. Peele has stated that he thinks Michael Jackson is the patron saint of duality, and that's also why all the Tethered wears one glove, just like Michael did. Slightly unlucky timing though, as Us released about a week after leaving Neverland, but hey, duality, right? If you pay close attention to the details in the film, it's easy to spot that there are several instances where the movie refers to the biblical verse Jeremiah 11:11, which reads, "Therefore this is what the Lord says, I will bring on them a disaster they cannot escape. Although they cry out to me, I will not listen to them." Which basically means, I don't know, but he will not listen. There are also references to Jaws, Nightmare on Elm Street, and The Goonies. Some people have also theorized that the title Us also could be interpreted as the US. So there's lots of deeper meanings here if you really want to spend an evening digging. I think that's enough for me though, so I'm gonna go into spoiler territory now. So here's your chance to get out if you haven't seen Us yet. This is not for you. Us is estimated to have made around 70 million on its opening weekend and is the second best opening for a live-action original film after Avatar, and the third best opening for a horror film after it and Halloween. And it's the best ever opening for an original horror film not based on any known property. I still think Get Out was more of a horror masterpiece than Us. Us had some seriously scary segments, but they were scary because of the situation the characters were put in. Like, I got more stressed than scared, and I didn't find myself very scared of the unknown like you are in Get Out. In Get Out, you quickly get so creeped out, you just have to know the truth because everything is so off. In Us, even though it had a plot twist and a reveal just as big as in Get Out, there was no mystery to be solved at first. You presented me with shadow people who lived in the mirror house, and I accepted that as some kind of supernatural lore, and I didn't wonder at all about the truth. When it was revealed that there was more to the story, it was of course a very pleasant surprise, but it wasn't obvious. Get Out is really about racial terror and how racism manifests itself in a way often only its targets can recognize. The family we follow in Us are just like Chris in Get Out in that they are surrounded by white people in an unfamiliar space. Us uses the same parameters for its humor and its horror, making us laugh with the same behavior it will later use to send chills down our spines. I personally think Us was more of a thrilling and entertaining ride, while Get Out was something truly horrible to uncover. The plot of Get Out is also a tad more original than evil clones come to kill us. Plus, I think Us uses more elements from the action comedy genre, and I think that makes it a little lighter and easier to digest. Not to be confused here, it is a Jordan Peele film and entertaining as fuck, and I'm super happy that he has established himself as someone who can deliver more than once, and I'm just really excited to see what he does with his career next. He has said in an interview that Us was inspired by the creepy Twilight Zone episode Mirror Image from 1960, which depicts a young woman and her evil doppelganger from another dimension. It's not a bad episode, so I for sure recommend giving it a go if you're interested. Or you could just not, as Peele is currently producing a new Twilight Zone series that premiered in April of 2019 and was renewed for a second season just 29 days later. Now, here are some random similarities that I could find between the two films. First of all, they both start and end with a driving scene. This is a little odd, but I'm sure there's some meaning behind it. And secondly, it's actually the same music composer for both of them, which I guess gives it a similar atmosphere. And third, there's a shot of Adelaide crying in Us that is a clear reference to Get Out. It's pretty cool. I also tried to find some proof that Us and Get Out take place in the same universe, because Peele himself has stated that there are Easter eggs that link the two movies and that they are kind of in the same universe. This has spreaded a theory that Peele is on a mission to secretly create his own horror universe, which I think is fucking genius, and I'm honestly kind of jealous. It would be so cool if the third or fourth movie he makes just tied everything together. You can read the entire theory here if you are interested, and there's also a lot of subreddits on the subject. Bonus crap! This is where I put in my bonus crap, which today is some moments that frustrated me while watching Us. This is it. Okay. Fine. She's hiding behind the car. They're on each other sides of the car. It's fine. I'm just putting myself in her shoes. Like, what would I do if I was her right now? And I would be so scared. I would not take my eyes off of her, which she isn't doing either. But here it is. Here's the moment where I get so upset with this girl because... Just look. No! 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 I would immediately jump up on the car! What is she doing? Why is she standing there? She just went under! Like, my instinct would be, I think the second that she disappeared, my legs would fly up into the air and I would be on top of the car. It's not safe! I would be too scared of her coming to, like, slit my ankles or something. Like, I can't do it! God damn it! And then she goes down to the ground and then she is on top of the car. It's just, it's, no! I did not approve this decision making, okay? It's just, it really bothered me. But then this dude comes and it's fine, you know, everything's fine, she gets away fine. It just really, that decision just really bothered me for some reason. Yeah, no, I guess that was it. I guess that was the only thing that bothered me. I'm sorry for making this into a segment, but, you know, really triggered my instincts for what was wrong and right in that situation, and she did the opposite of what I would do, and it really hurt my soul, so I guess I just needed to share that. Thank you so much for watching, and please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more like this, and I will go back and disappear into another dimension. Please help me. Bye!